And that was like the dopamine I didn't know I needed. I want as many people to experience this as humanly possible.
My guest today is Lloyd George. He is a project manager by day and a content creator by night.
What I didn't see were people that were sharing how you can gain confidence so that you do start.
Are you creating because you're an artist, or are you creating for the algorithm? And my internal struggle all the time is,
What's up, Aaron? How are you, man? Thanks
I'm
for
doing
having
great.
me. I'm so excited to do this. I feel like whenever we link up, we always have good conversations, and it's great to finally do it on mic.
Yes, we got to have this out into the world, out for everybody to hear kind of what it's like in the creator space these days. I know you talked about creator burnout is something that you wanted to talk about. I just got out of a little, what I like to call fog session for a couple of months. But I'm excited to hear your story because when I came across and met you, your brand is tight. What you have going on is really cool. And even since I met you, probably back in early spring of this year, you have done some fun things since then, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But first, I just want to hear a little bit more about you and maybe when the content creator timing really started for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in a country called Zimbabwe, but I've been in the United States for about 17 years now. And I think growing up, I was weird in the sense that I was a shy kid, in the sense that I was like scared to share my opinion publicly. I was not the person that would just be in a random group of people that I don't know and say, well, I think X. That was never me. But amongst my friends and people that I knew, I was kind of outspoken. And so creating content or being some sort of like public figure was always something that like I dreamed about and wanted to do. I just never had the confidence to do it. Come 2015, I'm at a dead end job that like I hate. Like literally, I'm going into the bathroom on lunch breaks and crying. Like that's how much I hated it.
The
It's like my
worst.
first job out of like I didn't go to college, but like right after that like college phase. So you're kind of like the realization that like I may be doing something I don't like doing forever is starting to like settle in. So I'm at this job and I decide, you know what, listening to podcasts will make the time go by faster. And so that's why I started listening to podcasts. That's 2015. And then 2018, I decided, well, what if I didn't just listen? Like, what if I started my own? And that was my first step into this world of like creating content and like sharing your thoughts publicly with the world, which was a strange thing.
I have to ask, 2015, what were some of those podcasts that you were listening to silently in your ear while you hated your job?
Yeah, ironically, I don't love this podcast anymore, but at the time I was listening to the Dave Ramsey podcast, which is like a financial podcast,
Yeah.
and they were one of the few podcasts they put out basically 3 hours worth of content per day, every single day for years. So they
Nuts.
had like thousands of like hours. So it was easy for me to come and listen for like 8 hours a day, you know.
Yeah.
And you're like being I think part of what was fascinating at that time was it was the first time I realized that podcasting was the only medium that would educate you for free, have like thousands of hours worth of content, and be something you can consume while you're not watching it. So it's like I couldn't have watched YouTube, and even if I could, it would have maybe been like 10-minute videos. So I think that was the first time I realized just how different the medium was.
Yeah, like an unconscious medium to where
Yeah.
people doing their laundry, people walking through the park, people doing
Right.
all those kind of things. Love Dave Ramsey, by the way.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey, I mean, I don't think that anybody agrees with every single
Yeah.
thought that Dave Ramsey has. But my buddy turned me on to him right
Yeah.
around, I would say 2018, 2019.
Yep.
And that's when I really started to get serious about my finances. And ever since, I think that a lot of people don't understand that you need to really like focus on your finances
Yep.
instead of just swiping the card. I don't know how much it has on the credit card. I don't know how much I'm in debt, all those kind of
Yeah.
things. Like Dave Ramsey was just like, let me break this down for you, have an emergency fund, have all those
Yeah.
kind of things. And really set me up over the last 5 or 6 years since I started listening to him. So
Yeah, especially doing what we do, I think as like creators, like I think for me, I didn't grow up with a strong understanding of like how money works. That's like one. And I think he explained it in a way that was like easy to digest. But then when you factor in like what we do for work, how we get paid, like our pay is kind of inconsistent. It
Yep.
comes in weird phases. And I think for a lot of people, that are like pushing themselves towards full-time entrepreneurship, I think not knowing how to manage your money makes it double as hard, because even if you could be a full-time entrepreneur, if you're just like money is like falling through the cracks, or you're like overspending on food, it just becomes that much harder to then like transition into like full-time entrepreneurship, I think.
I couldn't agree more. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on your finances,
Right.
especially if you're getting into entrepreneurship. You know,
Yeah.
I've worked with QuickBooks. I know there's
Yeah.
a lot of different other platforms out there, but having an understanding of what's coming in, what's a work expense, how to write things off. And the other good thing about a lot of these platforms is at the end of the year, the accounting software can be sent to my CPA. So
Yep.
my CPA gets a code, he pops in and he says, "Oh, great, you spent this much money on meals, this much money on driving. Let's make sure that you're updating, you know, these 20 transactions, make sure that they're
Yeah.
written down correctly so that they can be write-offs for your business."
When do you feel like you learned that? Like, when did you learn like the business aspect of it? Like, hey, this is how I should be managing my money as like an entrepreneur. Like, how did you learn that?
Well, I came into Dave Ramsey right as I was transitioning out of a full-time job and
Mm,
into entrepreneurship. So when COVID hit, my video production company I needed to step away from that because it was just wasn't the right setting for me anymore. And I saw the emergence of TikTok and I was
yeah.
like, well, if nobody knows about TikTok, I was one of the only people like in my niche in Charlotte that was like going all in on TikTok. Mind you, I was dancing in the middle of COVID on TikTok, but I knew that a lot of social media managers were going to not understand it and they were
Yep.
going to throw it on their social media person that maybe doesn't want to be dancing on TikTok or
Yeah.
doing those kind of things. So I went into business for myself in September of 2020. But honestly, I mean, it would probably be like a little bit of Dave Ramsey and a little bit of
Yeah.
YouTube just to understand like what constitutes a write-off, how, you know, you got to save money for
Yeah.
taxes, you got to be paying quarterly taxes, those kind of things. And I'm really excited to, because in the next couple of months, I'm going to start diving deeper into like those kind of things, specifically like on my YouTube page too, and talking about the different subscriptions that I'm using, the different applications that I'm using, and how those all benefit my business.
Yeah, I think that would benefit a lot of people. I think a lot of people don't know that information, but like just because it's scary. But I think also seeing a creator that you can resonate with talk about that stuff, I think is great.
Yeah. So 2015, you're listening to Dave Ramsey, but then you started to see that you wanted to get into that podcast world. Did you launch a podcast on your own from there? And what was that about?
Yeah. So in 2018, I decided like, yo, let's start our own thing. Like, what could it be? And it took me maybe like a solid year to go from like the idea of like, I think I want to have a podcast to actually starting it. And that's actually something that's pretty common. I see it normally take like a year to 18 months for people to actually like gain the confidence needed to do something like that. So I started a podcast called Foreign Made, which was a podcast that highlighted the stories of like immigrant founders. And I just fell in love. Like, it literally changed my life. Like, on one hand, I was getting more confident because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm liking this. I'm sharing my thoughts publicly. I'm interviewing people. But then on the other hand, I also started to get opportunities that I just never would have gotten any other way. People would like offer me job opportunities. People would offer me opportunities to speak places. And so I saw how it was slowly starting to like change my life. And I just knew like, yo, I want as many people to experience this as humanly possible. And so I decided I was going to start a TikTok, just sharing one tip per day on how people can start their podcast. And that was now in end of 2020. And that just also became a passion, just like TikTok videos on how you can start your podcast.
Like, what kind of content did that look like? Because like I said, back in 2020, all I was doing was dancing on my TikTok. So what kind of were you giving educational, like directly to the camera, kind of, this is how you start, you have to have a hosting software in order to get started, you have to have a way to record, like what kind of things were you teaching at the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I felt like there was already a lot of people that were telling you how to start a podcast, what microphone you needed, what host you needed. What I didn't see were people that were sharing how you can gain confidence so that you do start. So it was more on sort of like the internal dialogue of starting a podcast, right? Like, one of my most popular videos was like, hey, when you start your podcast, you're probably going to suck. And you'll probably suck for like your first 20 episodes, and that's okay. We'll just suck together,
Yeah.
right? And so it was more that sort of stuff and just encouraging people to start. There was a little bit of like, here's how you would actually upload the episode, or here's why I would use video or not video. But for the most part, it was just sort of like encouragement.
And what did that do for your confidence? I mean, so you're telling people how to start a podcast to boost their confidence to be able to press record and get started. But how did that maturation of you putting out more content help your internal confidence as well?
Yeah, it was a weird thing because at this stage, I'm still not even calling myself like a content creator. I'm still not saying like I'm a TikToker per se, but I started to have people message me and say like, "Hey, I started watching your videos and I just started my podcast," or "Hey, I'm on episode 10 now. I've been doing my podcast after seeing your content," and that was like the dopamine I didn't know I needed, and it just became a even like until this day, I think that's the thing that keeps me going. It's just like addicting. Like having people like give you feedback or say you helped them or say they love when you do this. It started to like increase my confidence in a way that I didn't even know was possible, was like the first thing. And then the second was it let me know that I like helping. I like the thing I like most about creating content is educating people, whether it's like podcasting or creator economy or whatever niche, it kind of doesn't matter. I just like explaining things in a way that's easy for people to understand and allows them to like take action. And this was giving me the opportunity to do that. I also did start making like some money from it, which helped too. But the fact that people were saying I was helping them was just like addicting.
It's the
Yeah,
best.
it is the
It's the
best.
best.
And I feel like I always try and explain this to other people, but unless you're like a creator, you just don't like they don't like you
Well,
don't get
I
it.
think it's not even necessarily like the creator dopamine as much as it's like I think Jim Rohn said,
Mm.
if you help as many people get
Yeah.
what they want, you'll get what you want.
Yeah.
And I go back to that every single time that I get a message like that, like, oh,
Yep.
this email really hit, or thank you so much for the tips, or thank you for spending time with me on consulting when I consult people for their social media and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That's a great point because I think the same feeling I think also is comes when entrepreneurs are solving a problem as well or find their
Yeah,
niche.
I think a fitness coach that somebody
Yeah.
now all of a sudden feels comfortable in their own body and they
Yep.
DM them, or I tried to, run a half marathon at a certain
Yeah.
pace as a marathon coach, and the student or the athlete is achieves what they wanted to. It's just like, oh, it's like
Yeah.
such a. You're right. It's like it's different than a like on
Yeah.
Instagram.
It
It's a
is
little.
it is.
It's a
Yeah.
little bit deeper.
Yeah.
It makes everything worth it, which
Yeah.
is when you're a content creator and a solopreneur, you need those small little wins to
Yeah.
just remind you when you're in a little bit of a creative rut
Yeah.
that it's worth it, and that
Absolutely.
you're helping people and you're getting people from point A to point B is basically what businesses have been doing since the beginning of time. So
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like if and I ask myself this all the time, if your content wasn't going anywhere, like it wasn't growing, like more people were not seeing your content, but every day for the rest of your life, at least one person was gonna say, "Thank you for making that video.
worth
It
it,
really helped me." Would that be worth it
worth
to
it.
you?
Every one a day.
Yeah.
I'm like for happy for like 2 to 3 a week.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
one a day, like yes.
Okay.
Especially if you're putting out what you'd like to
Yeah.
put out, what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Like yeah, like this is hopefully somebody gets something out of this piece of content that we're taking the time to do. Record in the middle of both of our work days.
Yep.
It's just that we want to potentially give something that people can feel good about, can people can relate to, people can understand that this is we're putting a lot of hard work and a lot of time into this content. But yes,
Yeah.
one a day is
Yeah. More than enough.
more than enough,
Yeah, I
more than
feel you.
enough. So now you got some people that are telling you that I'm, getting confident. You're helping me with these kind of things. When did it shift into, and you said you were making a little bit of money. What was that little bit of money looking like? Was that sponsorship deals? Was that speaking gigs? Was that one-to-one, consultations? What was that next iteration of your business?
Yeah, I feel like I've always been really good at monetizing my content. I'd say I've been better at that than being a content creator. And that's how I think about it. I think about these as two separate skills, right? Like making content is one skill, monetizing your content is another. When I launched my first podcast in 2018, the podcast called Foreign Made, it was centered around helping immigrants. So I just made a list of like all of the organizations that support immigrants. I emailed all of them, was like, yo, I'm doing this podcast thing. I've got 8 episodes pre recorded. These are the guests, these are the followers they have. So I'm sure you could kind of guess how well it's going to do. I would love it if you sponsored the entire episode. Now, at this point, I'm doing this for the first time. I have no podcast downloads. And just from that 8 episode season, I made almost like $3,500. So it's like, I knew like early on that like, okay, like I can sell, I can ask people like to help me with stuff, and it could make me some money. And so when I was doing the TikTok thing, same sort of thing. I wasn't making a lot of money. Like I think I started by charging like $150, and I would make a video for your brand, or I would integrate your brand into my video. At first it started with microphone companies just because that's a natural progression.
Sure.
You're helping people start podcasts, so microphones work. Then it became hosting companies, and it just kind of expanded by, from there. And so that's what led me to start tracking my goals publicly, just in an effort to show people that, hey, you don't have to be a big follower to make money. It's working for me, and it can work for you too.
When did you start doing that publicly?
I've been doing that now for 18 months, so about a year. So what was that? At the beginning of 20, oh, I know when it was. I think it was like May of 2022 is when I started doing it. And it was really for me at that point, because I was just telling my wife like, hey, like this year I'm believing in God that I'm going to make $20,000. Like I'm doing it. I'm going to share it publicly just so that I can come back and reference this video. And when I posted that my goals, a lot of other people saw it. They resonated with it. Some people wanted to help me. And so it just became a thing that I started doing every month. And it's the piece of content I get the most feedback on.
Nice. And so are you breaking that down with, sponsorship deals versus affiliates versus like
Yeah.
for those of the people listening that haven't seen your brand yet, what kind of things are you breaking down? Because you spoke at an event, and after the event, I broke down in my newsletter everything. So it's really admirable, and I think a lot of people would be interested to do it. So tell me what the breakdown looks like.
For sure. So like my one controversial thing, actually probably one of three controversial things I'll say this episode is I'm anti-affiliates. Like I don't like affiliate deals like at all. I don't think they like favor creators. And so I do break down when I do the videos that like, hey, I made $3,000 this month. 1,000 of that was a deposit from a UGC deal. 500 of it was email sponsorship. 200 of it was podcast sponsorship. Or I got this amount of money and I got the deposit, but I didn't get the second half because I couldn't finish the work, right? Or I messed up something. And so I think in sharing my goals, I like to share sort of like the target, like what you're trying to hit, what you've made so far, where that money came from, and what you're trying to do. Because I think like people see that. The number of messages I get each month where it's like, hey, I saw your brand deal video. Let's DM so I can help you hit that goal. That's like a real, like brands like are that invested in it as well. So I think the more you share like what you need help with or what you're trying to do, the more likely people are to like try and help you.
Yeah, because you said the first time you ever put that out at the event that we were at 2 weeks ago, you said the first time you ever put that out, the amount of DMs that you got, like, let me help you get you to your goal, was very helpful, getting you to the goal the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, I like you mentioned a great point about like creators just responding positively to you sharing your goals, because I think like it does two things for creators. The first is like, it's just good when we have transparency. So if I might be making like a third of what you're making, you're more likely to reach out and say like, you should charge more for this, right?
Right.
And then I think the second is a lot of creators, like larger creators that are like maybe like between, I'd say like 40,000 and 100,000 followers, they get a lot of offers for brand deals that are beneath what they're willing to do. And so the likelihood that, and I'm a smaller creator and the same thing happens to me. I get deals all the time that are like $1,000, but it's like, nah, I don't vape. So it's like, I'm not going to like do that, but you should talk to my homie, Justin. He loved this.
Yeah.
And so I think the more we all know like what we're doing and the more open we are to find out like, how can I help you? The more likely we could share deals amongst one another.
Yeah, of course. And you helped me out with get me connected to a brand as well. So we did a podcasting call a couple of weeks ago.
Nice. Yeah.
And you said that you brought a brand up and you connected us and we're in conversation. So appreciate you, homie. Got to get that get that thing locked down. Got to get the signature, exactly. and then I'll be real jacked up.
Yeah, we need to talk about that too at the end, because I want to say something about that.
I want to take a short break to tell you about my new favorite tool, Cast Magic. This tool can turn any audio into content. That's meetings from work, long YouTube videos from your favorite mentors, and even podcasts. Just upload the audio or YouTube link and let the magic begin. In fact, the title, show notes, social media, and my newsletter blast for this exact podcast were all produced by Cast Magic. To get started, check out the link in the show notes and turn your media into ready-to-use content. You'll thank me later. Now, back to the show.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is I find that sometimes when you're creating content and then you realize you could start making money from it, I think the way you view your content slowly starts to change from a hobby or just a passion of art to now like a side hustle or like a business or something that could contribute to feeding my family. And I feel that like when I start to like experience like fatigue or tiredness or even frustration, it's often because like the things that make me money are like now becoming difficult. But if I was just podcasting, that would be like I could do that with like my eyes closed. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like the more you like the things that make you money, the more you start doing those things, the more likely you are to have like creator burnout, for example?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I got rattled last summer when Hassan Minaj said, "Are you creating because you're an artist, or are you creating for the algorithm?"
That was so good. Yeah.
And I like my whole world shattered. And
Yeah.
I'm like, am I making this like super quick edit and like blah 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 blah
Yeah.
because I know it's going to go do well on TikTok, or am I proud
Yeah.
that I spent the time to push that on TikTok?
Yeah.
Like right before I got here, something that I've worked on for the last couple of weeks, a podcast snippet that I shipped off to an editor overseas, brought back, collab posted on Instagram with a friend of mine, Sam, that was on the podcast last episode. And before I got here, it had 11 likes.
Wow.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
11? Like
Yeah.
that it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not saying that the piece of content brought value. It wasn't really an algorithm play. Like I just wanted it to look more aesthetically pleasing because there's a lot of people on social media that have like, and it's a really good edit. You go watch it. It's a really good edit. But then I look back and like I posted the video of me making fun of people that decorate on November 1st.
Yeah.
Like started singing Mariah Carey on my Instagram and it's got 20,000 views and it's the most interaction I've had with my content in months.
Yeah. That's what I love about your content though. I feel like you do something that I am not great at doing yet, that I know a lot of creators are still working on, which is I think you balance showing your personality and adding value very, very well.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I'm more just like, bro, I'm gonna like podcast tip you to death, like nonstop. I got like facts for days. And so even just trying to like get out of my comfort zone and share like more personal info. Like I got in trouble at work one time because on my project management job, they called me into like my manager's office and she was like, yo, our clients are complaining that you finish the calls too fast. Like you don't share enough about you. You don't like you're not
Interesting.
like what's it called when you're like not
Like
hospitable.
personable?
Like personable.
Okay.
Like they want to just like cash it up a little.
Yeah.
And because I'm a project manager, I'm thinking like I'm being efficient by like, just like getting to business, wrapping it up. Here's 15 minutes back. And so I struggle sharing like personal or even like things that are just fun that aren't in my niche, so to speak. And I think you do that very, very, very well.
Well, the problem with my business and like my mind when I think about my business is I'm a two-headed monster in the sense that I think of a really, really funny skit, like people decorating on November 1st, all the crazy Christmas people. So I have skit creating laughter dodge and I have social media tip dodge.
Yeah.
And my internal struggle all the time is, can that live on the same Instagram?
Yeah.
Can that live on the same TikTok? Can that live on the same YouTube?
Yeah.
I just crossed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and I didn't really get there because of my long form content. I got there because I was being a goofball on my shorts.
Yeah.
And so it's an internal struggle every single day is what piece of content should go where, and are people enjoying the fact that like I make them laugh on Monday and then I tell them how they can increase their engagement on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that it's a good mixture between the two, and that as a viewer of my content, that doing a little bit of both is nice. I think it's nice because I don't think you don't want to be, like you said, you don't want to be like Mr. podcast tip every day. You want to have a little bit of personality and laughter in there and stuff like that. So I just have so many funny skit ideas in my head that it's just like there's always going to be skits on my page no matter what I'm doing for work.
Yeah, it's a good balance, I think. I think people like knowing who we are personally as creators.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, peeling back the layers, not only with the transparency, but, things that you're going through, like we're all humans in
Yeah.
the same sense. Like there's thousands and thousands of content creators out there, and we're all going through the same things. We're all wondering why this video we put 8 hours into is not doing well. We're
Yeah.
wondering why no one's looking at our stories. We're wondering why, like, all of those kind of things. It is a business. It's just
Yeah.
like there's applications that people have been using to grow their business for years, and now it just happens to be that we're using social media platforms.
Facts. Can I just say one more thing? I like
Yeah.
that you do. This is the Aaron up. I'm about to what's it called when you
Hype
amp
up?
you up, amp you up.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Word.
so one of the things you did was like ask me last week. You're like, "Yo, could you subscribe to my newsletter?" And I loved that so much because that is like I'm always telling people that like you could just like if you haven't asked everybody in your contacts like listen to your podcast like at least once like if
Yeah.
they say no like they say
Yeah.
no, but it's like you have to at least ask. And it's like I do that all the time, and you'll be surprised like not only will people like do it, but they'll be like, oh yeah, let me also send this to my homie, or let me share this on my story or whatever, or I didn't even know you had a newsletter. So it's like like I love just being direct and asking people to like help you or support you.
Yeah, because it's 2024 and we don't know what's going to happen with these
Yep.
platforms in the next 12 to 48 months.
Yeah.
And so having those people's emails on, like, I'm a huge newsletter person. I'm trying to grow my newsletter every single day, every single week. I believe that my value on my newsletter is going up, and so I'm really just trying to send as many people that I can there. I want to be able to help solopreneurs that are struggling with these kind of things, struggling with content creation, struggling with what platform do I put my accounting software on.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, record myself correctly for like these kind of things. And so I just really trying to, bring value on my newsletter, and because I know that that's just a really good opportunity. And I've always been a video first
Yep.
person, as you can tell by the way that I create content. I've always just been, it's very easy for me to talk to the camera. It's very easy for me to do those kind of things. I've always had a negative relationship with writing. I was good at math. I was good at other things. I'm good on camera.
Yep.
I don't consider myself a good writer, but I need to shift that mindset and just be like, it's okay if there's mistakes in my email. It's okay if I'm misspelling things, because I'm human. And I actually, one of the biggest feedbacks that I get on my newsletter is that people think that it's really my voice. And that's what I really like about the way that my writing style is. I'm not going to try to make sure that there's big words in there. I'm not going to, probably really like grammar check or do anything like that. It's just like, happy trending Tuesday.
Yep.
This is how I was feeling this morning. This didn't get as much viewership as I wanted to. I was upset. I'm sure you're upset with these platforms too. Let's talk about it, blah, blah, blah. And so I get the biggest feedback I get is that people they feel like they're talking to me through their newsletter. And I would suggest that, if you have the writing ability to take your newsletter to the next level, sure. But if you are somebody that's like a very personable person and a very one-to-one person like myself, it would make sense for you to communicate that way through your newsletter. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Same here. It's like, man, I try and be as authentic as possible in that newsletter. And I think it's so easy to like feel like you have to like be Mr. Professor in your newsletter. So I resonate with that a lot.
Tell us about your newsletter.
Yeah. So it's also called the Creator Hub. I honestly am still figuring out its purpose right now. As of late, I've just been sharing things that I'm struggling with on my creator journey. A lot of that is just like, this is the reality of what's happening in my life today. I feel burnt out, or today I had a crappy conversation with a sponsor. Here's how it went. And so it's a little bit of the behind the scenes of the creator journey.
Nice. And how long have you had the newsletter?
It's been a year, which is crazy to think. I have about 800 subscribers, and I've been prioritizing for me like open rates. And I probably obsess about this a little too much. So I have like very tight like filters on my newsletter. Like if you don't open like anything or engage with the newsletter, I think it's like 45 days maybe, you're like kicked out of the newsletter. So it's like
Interesting.
I keep it
Is that
super,
something that
super
you
tight.
have on your newsletter platform, the ability to push them out?
Yeah.
Or if you're just going through and looking and seeing that this person hasn't interacted in a while?
No, so it's basically an automation trigger where if someone doesn't open X number of emails in X number of days, basically they're sent an email saying like, hey, I think it's time for us to break up. I would love for you to open the emails. And if they open that email, they're put back in the list. But if they
Oh,
don't, so it's mainly for people who like the newsletter is just going to their spam. It's like they don't want this anymore. So
yeah.
I'd much rather keep that.
Are you comfortable with discussing your open rate on your newsletter at this
Yeah.
juncture?
So I have 2 newsletters. My main newsletter, Creator Hub, that I was telling you about. I think the open rate on that one is like maybe 71%.
It's a good
And
number.
then, yeah. And so I think the question I've come to grips with is I'm okay having less subscribers and having a high open rate than
Yeah.
vice versa. And then on
Sponsors
my,
want a higher open rate.
yeah. And so on my second newsletter, only 500 subscribers for that one.
Don't say only.
Good point.
Don't
500
never say only. Don't come
subscribers.
on my show and say the
Right.
word only.
Good
500,
point.
that's dope.
I appreciate that. So 500 subscribers on that one, but 81% open rate, which is insane.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been obsessing with that. I think I'm gonna pivot a little more now and just start obsessing more with like how to grow it and get more subscribers, which I definitely think I could do. I'm just
What platform are you operating on right now?
on Beehive,
Okay, Beehive.
which is my favorite platform ever. I feel like I've tried every single newsletter platform. at
I'm on
this point.
ConvertKit.
I love ConvertKit. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty good.
ConvertKit's
over.
awesome. Love Nathan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Solid. Do you like it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How long have you been on there?
2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
2 years. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely portions of the platform that I haven't really utilized like I probably could and should have. But a buddy of mine's building some software that I'm going to try to test over with my email newsletter
Oh, nice.
in the near future. So I'm excited about that. But yeah,
Do you use the Spark Loop referral feature that allows like people to subscribe to other newsletters when they subscribe to yours, or vice versa?
I use the creator network on
yeah. Okay.
on
Cool.
ConvertKit. So a couple of people suggest me at the end,
Okay,
and I
cool.
suggest 3 people anytime that the people subscribe to me as well.
I
So
love that.
yeah, so that's nice. That's cool. I got to do a better job about seeing who's suggesting me. That's something that's kind of like on my to-do list right now,
Yeah.
is like who's suggesting me, and can I even DM somebody else in the creator network on ConvertKit
Yeah.
and be like, hey, we're not really competitors, but we're both
Yeah.
kind of in the creator economy. Like, would you mind suggesting my my newsletter to at the end of your subscriber? Because I know that Jay Klaus says
Yeah.
that he gets a ridiculous amount of subs from
Yeah.
the suggestions portion on creator.
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's one of my favorite things about Beehive as well, is that feature. And same thing. Like I think that's probably been like the #1 way that I've grown my newsletter.
Dude, 500, 800 is amazing.
Yeah. I
What's the
appreciate
second
that.
one called?
It's about project management, so it's called the project management newsletter.
Hey.
And so I've just been like using it to test stuff, and it's been great.
Speaking of testing, you started a second TikTok. Let's talk
Yeah.
about it.
So like my second TikTok at this point is growing faster than my first. I just crossed I think 10,000, and my first TikTok is at 13,000. But for those of you that may not know, my first TikTok is centered around project management tips. I mean, podcasting tips. My second is centered around project management tips for people that want to switch their career into project management. And it's just, I love those people. They're like, I will say like this one thing I've learned. If you're like providing like content, right? Content for someone that wants to be a podcaster or creator, that person, I would consider them like a hobbyist, right? Like they're not gonna maybe make money from that immediately. They're also not gonna like invest any like big money immediately, versus like someone that wants to become a project management that's like, I need a new job today, and if this works I can make 6 figures. So the desperation level from that person is going to be a lot greater. So even in just like asking someone to like subscribe to your newsletter, join your SMS, DM you, like in terms of asking them to like call to action, like it's a crazy engagement rate, like
That's
so
awesome.
insane. Like at least once per week one of my videos goes viral, just like at least. Like there hasn't been a single week where like one of my videos hasn't gone viral, which is crazy.
And I want to talk a little bit about systems because I think that's a big thing with creators. Do you have like a second brain where you're throwing all of your ideas, specifically let's say for like the project management. I mean, one viral video a week is a great number. Do you have those backlogged? Are you filming those ahead of time? How often are you posting on that project management TikTok?
So like the constraints that I give myself with this second channel are I can't spend more than 15 minutes creating the video, from like idea to script writing to recording to like editing. So if the idea is going to take more than 15 minutes, then I can't do it. And that was sort of like a rule that I needed to put in place because I'm spread a little too thin. So it's just not practical to think that like you could be spending like an hour on a video. So for me, like literally, I don't come up with any new concepts. Like I'm not. This is like a rule I had to discuss with my wife to be able to start the second channel. So like I can't come up with any new concepts. All of the video ideas are only questions that are asked via comments. So if someone asks a question in a comment, I can respond to that comment, and that's all of the content on that page, like nothing other than that. So it's wild. So I do think that like constraints can be great for creators, and if you can put constraints, I do it with my main channel too. If I record a video, it might take me a while to write the script and record it, but I never ever edit it for more than like 20 to 30 minutes ever. Like I would never sit there for like an hour and edit
That is
something.
crazy.
Yeah.
You're just like second channel can only happen if it's
Yeah.
under 15 minutes
Yeah.
and like constraints and it's only coming from that's the
Yeah.
other thing too is I really always teach people that the proof is in the pudding, the proof is in
Yep.
the comments. Like if there is
Yeah.
a good, like if you aren't making good content off of a comment,
Yep.
they can be turned around into something quick hitting that you can film and deploy in 15 minutes and
Yeah.
go viral and grow your followership. Like, come on.
Yeah,
It's like
1000%. And I think as creators, like I think we do a good job like over analyzing things that don't really matter. So this is I think a good way to know like that extra like, and this doesn't apply for everyone because there are some people like Mr. Beast where it's like the edit is very important to the video.
Sure is.
But for the bulk majority of creators, it's like,
Just
dude,
press record.
give me the
Just
information.
press publish.
Yeah, just press publish.
Just press publish.
So it's like, yeah, I think that like simplifying my workflow helps me. I don't currently have a second brain. I'm working on one, but what I do a great job of is just like organizing ideas. So even with like the comments, like if I needed to film a video right now, I could just open my phone and I have a catalog of like ideas of like comments or like, oh, that'd be great to respond to one time. Same with like my main channel. I kind of know like, hey, for the next 3 months, I'd love to talk about these ideas. And the benefit of doing that is I think like if you're ever in the shower or something, you already know like, okay, let me pick one idea and let me just start thinking about what like a good hook could be for that. So yeah, even as I'm like driving here, I could be like working on the video in my brain because I've documented what the video even is.
I like that. So if you have a little bit of constraints with the project management TikTok, where is the feeling of the creator burnout? Where is that coming from? What is that? How is that maturing right now?
Yeah. So I think for me, and for those of you that may not be listening, I feel incredibly burnt out. And I think part of that feeling is I'm doing a lot of things. Just to like, if I'm just like at a snapshot, just like off the top of my head, I have a main podcast called Creator Hub, which also has a newsletter. I publish once a day on LinkedIn about creator economy stuff. I have a project management TikTok. I also have a Creator Hub regular YouTube for like long form video.
Yep.
Then I have the project management TikTok, project management Instagram, project management newsletter. And that's just my content. On top of that, I'm creating content for like 6 brands on a weekly basis. And so it's like, if I were to just separate the amount of time I have for content per week, which I'd say is probably like 20 hours, and then you divide it by all of those things, you're maybe doing each thing for like 30 minutes and you're not even doing it that well. So then none of your channels are really growing, which I think contributes to that frustration of feeling like,
I'm putting all this stuff everywhere. Why am I not growing?
yeah, exactly. And so it's
I
like,
feel that.
I'm at a point now where I just feel kind of like, okay, I don't even have enough bandwidth to come up with really creative ideas for like the brands that want to work with me.
Sure.
And that's how I know like, okay, it's like, dude, you need to like slow down a little. And so what that's looked like for me lately, these last few weeks, is just like, I haven't published any content on my main Creator Hub, TikTok, Instagram, nothing. I haven't sent out my newsletter. I haven't sent out my podcast. And I end my days at 2 p.m. So like at 2 p.m., my laptop is like closed. It's like there's no more work after that. And so obviously that means I can't put out as much content, but I do feel better. And I think that's like the first level of it, because 2 weeks ago, I was forget like being able to do enough stuff. I literally was feeling sad. Like I was feeling kind of depressed.
Yeah.
So now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I feel better. I can now start. I'm not going to create content for myself, but I at least need to do like the brands that have paid me. I need to do their content.
Yeah, I think you can reevaluate once you get through these contracts. If they're expiring contracts,
Right.
I would finish those up, and then I would reevaluate and really think about what the next. It's a great time right now. I also say we're heading into hibernation time.
Yep.
Sun's going down earlier. It's less time, staying up later because the sun's going down later. This is the time when you build really these next 4 months, because you're finishing up 2023 and you're heading into 2024, and you can come out in the springtime and be flourishing like all of the flowers and plants do in life. So it's kind of like a reemergence. So I would say just to take those sponsorships, let those kind of fizzle, because if I understand correctly, financially, those really aren't that big of a pusher in what's going on with you right now. I would let those fall off, and then just start creating things that make you happy, and start doing things and start getting ahead. I think another thing that I'm going to start working on better and doing better is getting ahead. Like what does my newsletter look like? We're currently recording this on a Wednesday. My next newsletter might not go out until Tuesday. So what am I going to start talking about that? So I'm not writing that at 10:52 p.m. on Monday nights, which is a lot of what I do. My fiance gets done with work, and she's like, "Are we going to watch 90 Day Fiance?" And I'm like, "Not until this newsletter's written."
Yeah.
But she's great. She always is like, "Did you schedule it yet?" So she's the best. But yeah, man, I think just really getting back to like what brings you happiness, and what, because I think there's, just like you said, with the helping people. Yeah. It's just like all of this stuff is good from a financial standpoint, but if you're not getting back to the thing that makes you the happiest, which is creating content that helps others, then who you're really doing it for.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I feel like, I think I'm in a better headspace, and tell me if you resonate with this. I feel like for me, it's, if I feel like I have clear vision of like where I'm going, like I understand like, we are all rowing in this direction. We want the podcast to do well. That is like the thing we're focused on. I'm like, great. I can create for days. I'm motivated. I can go. I think it's when I start to feel sort of like this direction doesn't feel certain to me anymore. I don't think that like the podcast is going to be the thing that works out, or the vision for the podcast isn't clear. I broke down sort of like what I do into 3 categories. I help brands with their content. I do my own creator economy content, and then I do this project management stuff. And so I feel like I need to like simplify that and take a lot of stuff off, but I'm not clear on like what is like the thing for next year. And that's the thing that I feel like makes me feel kind of like not sad, but unmotivated.
Okay.
Do you resonate with that, or do you?
Well, I resonate with the no vision thing, because my like depressive fog that I just came out of had 0 vision. Yeah. Like I had 2 clients. I was just like, making sure that they were okay, and then the rest of the day I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. I didn't want to press record. I didn't want to be funny. I didn't want to, make any content whatsoever. And so I was like, I had no vision. And then when I came out of that fog, it was like, all right, this is what my business is about. I am a social media consultant, I'm a content creator, and I'm a podcast host. And I stayed like in those lanes, and I know the other thing too is like having the confidence to understand that like what you're doing might not be yielding you money like today, but you're slowly building those rocks that get you higher and higher up the mountain. Like that's the biggest thing that I've been doing over the last 2 weeks when I got out of the fog. Like I'm like, all right, cool. I got my newsletter, I got to grow my newsletter. So where am I talking about my newsletter to grow my newsletter? Yeah. I've been friends with Lloyd for 6 months. He doesn't subscribe to my newsletter. I know that's a 1-to-1, and people want to grow faster than that, but a 1 new subscriber today, that's enough. Right. I think that I have a great brand. I know how to be on camera. Hello. I talk to a
That's
camera
good.
every single day. What's good? There are hundreds of sponsors out there
Yeah.
that could be sponsoring this podcast. It could be sponsoring my social media content, could be sponsoring my newsletter.
Yeah.
I was not treating my business like a business.
Yep.
It was just
That's a point.
it was like client, and then what are we posting on Instagram tomorrow?
Yeah.
No. What are you posting on Instagram tomorrow that's going to show somebody either one, that they should like me,
Yep.
or that two, I can get them to point A to point B in their business or on their social media.
Yeah.
And so now on my second brain, which is Notion, because of the event that we are at, like
Yeah.
threw me for a loop. I'm like,
Shout
I
out
kind
Notion.
of sort of use Notion now. Ever since that, I got November goals
Yep.
listed at the top of the list. Then I have my social media, I have my podcast, I have my newsletter, and I have my sales list. And they
Yeah.
are all right there staring me in the face every single day. Did I reach out to any brands today? Did I cold email anybody? Did I follow up with the people that I met at the event on
Yeah.
Thursday? If you're not treating your business like a business, it's
Yeah.
going to be stagnant.
Yep.
When you're just as much as you're pressing record on an Instagram video, if you're pressing send on emails that can
Yeah.
potentially lead you down the rabbit hole to more sponsorship deals, the better that your business is going to be, because
Yep.
those are not all going to hit. We all know
Yeah.
cold leads or anything like that, it's not going to hit on the first one. It's going to
Yeah.
hit on the 24th one. So
Right,
you got to
exactly.
get those just as much as you got to press
Reps,
record.
yeah.
You got to be hitting send on
Yeah.
emails and DMs.
Dude, that's so good. Like, oh my gosh, I love that so much. And I think to your point, that's like something that I've had to be honest with myself about. That it's like, yo, like I met this guy, and I'm not gonna shout his name because I don't know if he'd like that, but I posted something on LinkedIn about like my business and how it was doing or whatever. And when I met him, I feel like he's like the more further along version of like what I want to be doing. And when I spoke to him and I was like, yo, this is my media kit, this is how I sell brands, this is what I do. And he was just like, dude, you're not treating this like a business. He said it in more for lightweight, but it's like, you're not treating this like a business. And the moment you learn how to do that, you'll double your income. So it's like, you don't even have sales processes. You don't follow up with people on a regular basis. You don't have a clear way to get like new leads into your CRM. You're not even following up with the leads that you do have in your CRM. So it's just like, there's like, I think we often feel as creators like there isn't enough opportunity, or like this brand didn't close this week and we think it's because this week they didn't close. But I think a lot of the work that happens months before that isn't being done, and that's how we end up at the results.
Or
that
the
we're
work that's not happening after that first email is sent.
Exactly.
The contact that you connected me with,
Yep.
I didn't follow up with him, and then I just happened to stumble upon him
Yeah.
at the event that we were at.
Right.
It was on me that I
Yeah.
didn't even follow up. Like, yes, he didn't respond back to me in general, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that we have a conversation now. But that was on me. If
Yeah.
if my manager at a job came in and said, "Remember that
Right.
email you sent 2 weeks ago? Did you follow up with that lead?" And I
Right.
said no, I would be fired.
Yeah, exactly.
So why am I not treating my business the same way?
Yeah.
So I either I really try to have like, how did my week go?
Yeah.
Like one-on-ones with myself. And
Yeah.
it's just like, not only just like goal checking, but like, did you follow up? How many cold leads did you reach out to? How many RFPs did you send? How many podcasts did you get out? How many pieces of content did you get out? How many
Yeah.
newsletter subscribers did you have? So
Yeah.
got to treat your business like a business. I think that's the hardest thing as a
Yeah.
creator, because you're like, and as a solopreneur, you're like, it's my business. If I don't make $500 more this month, I'll be okay.
Right.
But in the same sense, it's just like, if somebody else would have fired me for the way that I handle my business, why would you not handle your
Exactly.
business better?
I need to fire me.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. That's a really good point.
I think accountability is really big too.
Yeah.
And I think that even though we're boys and we talk like him and Han and stuff,
Yeah.
if we want to get on like a Sunday night call and talk about our
Yeah.
businesses more and our content and like what our newsletters look like I would be more than happy to do that. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to
Yeah.
this podcast / friends of ours that would be down to start having a little, business powwow about
Yeah.
what's going on. So
This is also such a great niche, I think, for someone out there, because I think there's a lot of people that didn't spend time in corporate America that don't have a sales background. That like, how would they even know?
So
like,
many.
following up.
I mean,
or, like, what to
these kids
do?
are going viral at 18, and all
Yeah.
they've been is like a server at a
Yeah.
restaurant, and you're expecting them to understand that they have to put away 40% for taxes. They don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Schools aren't teaching these kids like how to be how to understand their money,
Yeah.
just basic. And now they have, $5,000 coming in from a sponsor. They're taking that stuff and they're going right to the mall with that money instead of putting it away and stuff like that. So maybe a little bit more tax information about what it's like with the content creator world. Maybe it's something we can look at.
Facts. I 1000% agree.
Man, I don't even know how, like 50 minutes just blew by.
Literally, I was just checking that. That's insane.
I was like, where is I was like, I don't want to look. I don't want to see how long we've been recording.
Don't have a clock anywhere.
We don't have a clock anywhere in here. I was trying, but I think that was a spicy ass podcast, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Can I ask you one more thing before you
Let's
end?
do it.
I want to hold this book while I ask you this. What was your favorite part about this book? Like, what about this book?
Okay, so
by the way, this is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin.
By Rick Rubin. Okay, so Rick Rubin was on the Rich Roll podcast a couple of months ago. Had no idea who he was. I was like, is he a heavy metal guy? And they're like, no, he's a music producer. I'm like, excuse me? So he talks about this book. Me and my fiance talk about beige flags. It's like not a red flag, not a green flag, but like maybe her beige flag would be like all the Amazon packages. My beige flag is listening to podcasts, and I'm 13 pages in on another book, and I get this comes up delivered in 2 days.
I got to read 4 or 5 at the same time.
I'm reading 5 books right now. She's like, this is your beige flag.
Right.
So he comes on, and I love the way that he broke down being a creator, I just want to preface this because I think that a lot of people don't understand this. A creator is anybody that creates anything.
Yep.
From doodling on a napkin to a TikTok video, to writing a bomb ass LinkedIn post or a bomb ass tweet or a novel or anything like that. If you're creating something, you're a creator, and that's the first chapter. Is everyone is a creator. So I buy the book. Yep. So this book arrives when I'm still in this like depressive fog that we talked about. And I'm all happy because I liked what he had to say. And I thought this book was going to be dope. And I get through it and I pick it up and I'm like, are you kidding me? These are 3-page chapters. Yeah. How am I supposed to lay on the couch and like really sink into this book? Yeah. And I expressed this to a buddy of mine, my best friend, Joe. Joe's like, no, dude, you're doing it all wrong. He goes, read it as a daily meditation. And he says, open it up every single day. Don't look at it. And when you open it up, that is your passage or your meditation for the day. Yeah. Bro, I tell you, he tells me that. I come out of this depressive fog, the first day out of the depressive fog, he tells me this. The first thing that I open to is page 201, abundance mindset. And I was just like, the universe is like, I'm getting chills right now just telling you, like, I just knew that I had finally reached like the lowest of low with this fog that I was in, and that everything's going to be okay. As long as I'm being a creator and I'm creating abundance and I'm putting out good vibes to the world and I'm treating my business like a business. Like, so if you want this book and you get this book and you have this book and you haven't dove in yet, 1 chapter a day.
Because it is hard. I do think it is hard to read a bit if you just go into it kind of blind. Yeah. I love, like, there's a chapter in there where he talks about this idea that we should be creating almost like we are giving a sacrifice, like we're doing something to give like offering or like praise to God, for example. And you may not believe in God, but like just for the sake of this argument. And so when you think about it that way, we shouldn't feel like we're creating and then based on the feedback we get feeling like, oh, this could be better because the original thing you created it's the best it can be because you're doing it as like a way to give praise to something like greater. And that chapter just resonated with me so much because I think as creators, there's like another quote I heard where it's like, it was Jason Derulo actually at this on Airfest. One of the things he said was like, when I create art or like music, it's never finished. I just surrender it. I surrender that I have no more time. And so I constantly feel like, what is like the best this interview can be? Like, what would add more value? And it's like, we came here, we did our best. We gave as much information as we can. We need to have peace knowing that like we've done enough. Like next tomorrow, there'll be another project, right? And you can do your best then. So I just feel like there's so many good gems. This book is like amazing for like creators, artists, influencers, and
Yeah.
one day we'll talk about the difference between all of those. But
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite books right now.
It's a great book. I'll make sure to put it down in the show notes for the podcast listeners. And I really appreciate you coming in, man. Appreciate you having you on the pod. I appreciate your friendship, and really excited to see what happens in the next couple of months when both of us treat our business like a business.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, appreciate it.
Peace.
Peace.